Hey, what is up, everybody? So this video and this series of videos, I'll probably break them up into separate videos so you can focus on the chapter, but they're going to be about the contents of this new Faraway Land OSR core rulebook that we're running the Kickstarter for right now. What I wanted to do is give you all sort of an overview of what's in there, give you a little idea of the content, and then show you what the book looks like as opposed to just talking about it in text on the Kickstarter page. So I'll just get started going through this chapter by chapter and give you a few of the details. The table of contents, there's 8 chapters in this. Couple forwards. Matt Finch and Eric Tinkar were kind enough to write these forwards. I asked them, and the reason I asked them is because this version of Faraway Land, it's really heavily influenced by Swords and Wizardry, specifically Swords and Wizardry Continual Light. A lot of those mechanics, which I think are really elegant, beautiful mechanics, and I thought they fit Faraway Land perfectly. So thank you, Matt and Eric, for doing that. Chapter 1 is the introduction. It's just a really short and brief overview of what the game is, players and GMs, what the purpose is, the dice, some common abbreviations, and then an overview of the setting of Faraway Land itself, which is just really a quick primer to give folks who are new to Faraway Land some sort of idea of what it's all about. Just a couple pages, and then we get into character creation. So character creation for FAL OSR is pretty similar to just regular OSR. You've got your your attributes, strength, dex, constitution. You have HP, armor class. You've got a save. You've got one save just that works very much the same as it does in Swords and Wizardry Continual Light. In this book, there's 4 classes. You have a fighter, you have 2 mage classes, the Chaos Mage and the Light Mage, and then you have a Thief class. And what we've provided in the book are several sort of subclasses for each class. So you can see here with the fighter, there's these sample fighter characters: barbarians, knights, martial artists, monster hunters, rangers. Same thing for the Chaos Mage. You've got gray mages, necromancers, and war mages, and it's just this little brief sort of summary idea of the different types of characters you can play with that particular class. For example, on the Chaos Mage, you have the War Mage, and it says War Mages are Chaos Mages that rely on offensive direct damage spells. These mages often carry various weapons and may even wear light or medium armor. That idea of mages wearing light and medium armor is I thought it would be a cool way to sort of integrate and allow for folks to play different types of characters in the same class. So the idea with that, a mage that's wearing armor casting, is that mages take penalties for wearing armor. So light armor would give a very light penalty. Medium armor would give a moderate penalty, and then heavy armors like plate would make casting impossible. So you can have a mage that decides to sacrifice some of the reliability of their casting in order to go into combat wearing armor and perhaps even armed with a close quarters combat weapon. So it's just an option that's in the game. Light mage and then the thief. Those round out the 4 classes. And then we have the different races: Agnons, Blonins. A lot of these will be familiar to folks who are already familiar with Faraway Land. Dwarves, elves, Exions. I think there's 12 different classes in here. Each one of them a description and then their abilities. Newmans, Orca, Pumpkin, and Simians. And then rounding out the chapter, there's a section on equipment. And then we get into chapter 3, which I will do in a separate video, but I'm going to compile all of these so that folks can watch them. So anyway, I'll put this in the next video, and I'll see you there. All right, I'm back with chapter 3. We're looking at combat. If you're looking at these separately, then welcome back. If you're looking at these all in just a big compiled video of all the chapters, then thanks for sticking with me through this. So combat has a couple unique unique options in it. One of them being power tokens. Talks about that on this first page here in the chapter. Power tokens are essentially just tokens, chips, chits, or something that players can spend during the session. What these do is allow the players to manipulate the dice. So players can spend one on their PC, allowing the PC to perhaps roll 2 dice and taking the high roll, or they could play one of these tokens against an NPC, giving the NPC 2 dice to roll and then taking the low roll. This is just an optional rule, something that that we've used in homebrews for a while now, and it's pretty fun, and it adds a little bit of flavor to the game. Like I said, it's totally optional. GMs and players should really decide how they want to use the power tokens in game. Insta kills. This is sort of a unique thing. If a natural 20 is rolled against an enemy with an HD score less than the PC's level by 5 or more, the target is automatically killed. The idea with this would be it would be kind of cool to have high-level PCs be able to just sort of lay waste to loads of very low-level NPC enemies. So you just swing your sword and cut a swath through these little level 1 or level 2, whatever creatures. 21 on initiative. If a combatant rolls a natural 20 on the initiative roll, they get to roll 2 dice for their first attack and keep the high roll. If they roll a 1 for initiative, they must roll 2 dice and keep the low roll for their first attack. It's just another little optional rule that you could apply to the initiative roll. Saves, like I mentioned before, did you just have a single number? It's just the character's, it's the PC's save roll. Those are dependent on level. There are no experience points in this game, so I don't know if I mentioned before, but PCs level up based on session played, meeting goals, or how the GM deems as necessary for leveling up. The Die of Death. So this is sort of designed to, if you have a lot of combatants, to sort of speed up combat, or if combat you feel is taking too long, or just to add additional flavor. What it is the GM introduces a D6, sets it at a number. This can start at 1, or it can just be rolled to create a random number. And then that number is what all of the combatants, the bonus that they get on their rolls during combat, which makes combat a little faster and a little more deadly. The Die of Death is the name of that. Combat conditions, these are sort of carried over from Faraway Land. A lot of this is carried over from Faraway Land, but it's been converted, of course, to OSR. One of these things is armor shatter. It's the idea that a PC can choose to have their armor or shield destroyed in order to prevent damage being taken to themselves. This in turn allows like a PC often to stave off like damage that may wind up killing them, but sacrificing a piece of equipment in doing so. Battle Scar, sort of the same thing. Battle Scar allows the character, the PC, to stave off imminent death. So if they've taken damage and they've been reduced to a level of HP that they're going to die, they may instead choose to take a Battle Scar. And a Battle Scar is a physical, a mental, or an emotional scar that the PC will carry with them. It's a role-playing element, but it's really designed that they've survived, but they still carry this physical, mental, or emotional reminder of the terrible thing that happened. And then some other combat attrition and dual wielding, very simple. I think these things have been really simplified. Combat achievements, these are sort of video game inspired, I think. Like if you get a certain number of critical hits on a target, like in the same encounter or something, then from there on out, you might get a bonus to attack that specific creature type. Also contained in this chapter, we've got a section on naval combat. Really simple, really cinematic in nature, designed to get PCs into combat, doing things besides just attacking and defending, trying to give options for other types of actions to take place during combat, and how PCs can influence naval combat and NPCs in naval combat. It comes with an overview of ships and then like a list of some basic ships found in Faraway Land. Same thing with vehicle combat, simplified, very cinematic, really designed to get the PCs engaged, and not a lot of bookkeeping. It's really designed to be narrative. Here's what's going on. Here's the action. What do you want to do? Again, a list of basic vehicles, everything from a steam tank to a cow steed drawn carriage. Rules for mass combat, really simple mass combat rules, designed to just simplify the idea of, hundreds or thousands of combatants moving toward each other on the battlefield. It's a page and a half of really simplified rules. And then we finish up the chapter. So next chapter will be magic, and if you want, join me back here. I doubt if that video is going to be as long as this one, but thanks for watching, and I'll see you there. All right, back again. We're in chapter 4 now, looking at the magic in Faraway Land. Obtaining and casting spells in Faraway Land in this version. Spellcasters get their level plus 3 spells a day, and they can cast any level spell they want. They can put whatever they want in those slots, but that's the basics of how many spells that a caster can use. A mage attempting to cast a spell of a different class takes a -4 penalty. So say you're a chaos mage and you're trying to cast a light mage specific spell, you could cast that, but you're going to take a penalty. Spell fumbles, just some things in this to make spell casting a little more, to put a little bit more on the line rather than just, oh, I messed up, or I messed up the spell, or I miscast. Part of this is abusing spells. This is a set of rules that allow casters to cast spells higher than their experience level. So, for instance, if I'm a level 4 Chaos Mage and I find a level 7 spell scroll, I can try and cast that spell, but the chances of something going wrong and having a disastrous effect are fairly great. So it's the idea behind this is that you sacrifice the safety of spell casting for the ability to cast something more powerful. It's sort of fun, and it's sort of fun to see what the disastrous effects are. It'd be cool to modify this disastrous effects chart to see, what people could come up with, what kind of awfulness could happen from spell casting. It'd be nice to have a chart with about 100 different effects on it, just to make it a little more interesting. Spell lists. Spells are divided into 3 categories for FAL OSR. They're gray spells. These are class neutral spells, so Chaos Mages and Light Mages both can cast these. There's Chaos spells, of course, for the Chaos Mage, and then light spells for the Light Mage. There's a little bit of overlap with these. Each one has a description, their range, their duration. These are really simple, really sandboxy, really designed to allow players and GMs to interpret the spirit of the letter, as opposed to just hard, fast, really descriptive spell entries here. Each one of them has the level and then a little bit of text along with it. Also contained in this chapter is a generator for creating spell books, which allows you to create the name and the number of spells and then what the spell levels are, and a little bit of history and that sort of thing. Folks who are familiar with the original Faraway Land, they'll be familiar with a lot of the magic items in here. A lot of those are the same, and I think this is what rounds out the chapter. Yeah, this finishes up the chapter on magic. So the next part, we're going to look at the monsters. We'll roll through that pretty quick, and the monsters chapter will probably be part of the powers chapter too. That's the chapter that follows. So if you want to check that out, come back, and then I'll see you then. Oh, hey, so you're still here. We're looking at the chapter 5 now, Faraway Land OSR. Core rules, the monsters chapter. We're looking at the entries here. A lot of these, in fact, all of these, for folks who are familiar with the original Faraway Land, you're going to find 100 entries from Tome of Awesome, Creatures Volume 2, and Creatures Volume 3 included in these core rules for the FAL OSR. Each entry has a description, has their stat block, and then has a an image associated with that entry. This is pretty straightforward. A lot of variation on these. Some of the stuff has been tweaked to make it more. Some of the stat blocks have been tweaked a little bit from the original Faraway Land rules, but everything is pretty much the same. There's some horror who are attacking a party of adventurers. This guy here he's already failed. He will not be leveling up. Howlers, and just sort of an assortment of a lot of the creatures that I thought were really cool from those 3 books. Not saying that the other creatures aren't cool, but these are 100 creatures that I thought would be really sort of neat to introduce folks to. This is one I really like, the Purr Beast. It's a 5-headed giant cat from, I believe it's from the planet Hooligan. So this is really all this chapter has. There's a monster builder section here at the end. It's very simple, a very simple breakdown of how to build your own custom monster. And then there's a section on treasure, which gives you a treasure chart and some really simplified ways to generate treasure. Oh, you may notice this is a little bit of homage to some of the stuff that influenced this. Chapter 6, powers here. This is, if you're familiar with the Faraway Land original version, you'll be familiar with these. This is just a list of powers that you can add to specific races, to specific PCs or NPCs, just a bunch of different things to give you an idea of like how you can make a character unique. Also, if you're creating your own races, a way that you can sort of make those unique and give you some ideas on what they might be able to do. All right, so I'll finish this video up with that chapter. Next, we're going to look at mini games, and then we'll look at the final chapter. I'll do all those in one video because the last chapter won't take a long time. So I'll see you back there for chapter 7, mini games. Hey, all right, so Chapter 7, mini-games. We're looking at a bunch of the different mini-games in this chapter. Some of them are going to be familiar to folks who own the Tome of Awesome, the original Faraway Land Tome of Awesome. And then some of these are brand new, specifically for this Faraway Land OSR version of the game. Among these new ones are the Level 0 PC Builder, which allows you to build a really lame Level 0 PC that you can send to their death in the PC grinder that I'll talk about just in a minute. Really simple system for generating a level 0 PC. We've got a background generator, random adventure item generator to start them off. Basically, the level 0 PC is the character that just decided to get up off the couch and go out into the world without a real plan. They're just tired. They're fed up with their boring, mundane life of milking cow steeds or cleaning up the butcher shop or something. So they're going to go on the road and try and become adventurers. And the way that you can make these level 0 PCs, full-fledged adventures, is send them into a grinder. A grinder is basically a dungeon or a series of events that are designed to weed out a bunch of level 0 PCs. Those that survive these events go on to become hardened level 1 full-fledged adventurers. An example of one character grinder would be sending a bunch of level 0 PCs into a dungeon to see which ones survive. Some folks will be familiar with that for systems that use sort of a character funnel. This is a very similar and inspired by that. Another element of this type of grinder is what we're calling deadly games, and this is basically like the Olympics with death on the line. A bunch of terrible events where you send your level 0 PCs in to do things like run across platforms, try and throw each other off the top of an elevated platform, run down a gauntlet as people throw spears at them, race down a giant tunnel as a huge ball chases them, run blindfolded through a forest of spiked trees, those sorts of things, to see who survives, who can actually step up and become that level 1 adventurer. These are actually really fun, and what I'm sort of hoping is that people people run with this idea and come up with their own grinder events. Deadly games is what we're calling it. How original. Training montage. This has been simplified. It's from the original Faraway Land, but we've simplified it and made it a little easier. The idea of a training montage is really specifically designed to take a character to the next level, not through a session, but through some sort of summary play. The idea is that this system mimics training montages of 1980s film, where you have this struggle that takes place while they're doing this to while they're training to inspirational music. They're persevering through this struggle, and then eventually they have this victory. They run up the steps and throw their arms in the air, and they've learned this new thing, or they've managed to make this to meet this goal that they had. So the training montage, the way it can be used is, say that your session or your group, you have somebody that can't make an event. All the other characters have leveled up. The person who missed comes back the next week. The GM can say, "Hey, prepare a training montage, bring some inspirational music," and then the player would would sort of narrate what their PC was doing while they weren't on the adventure, and then if they want, the GM could level that PC up depending on the awesomeness of the training montage. Inspirational music is mandatory. Masters of the Materiosphere. This is just a small, simple world building game. Same thing with the Age of History. It's just a way to build like simple little worlds and histories as a group, sort of a narrative. Also contained in this chapter, the Wizard Spiral. It's the character grinder for level 0 PCs. It's a full-on adventure. All the rooms are numbered and described, and it has all of the information for running the adventure. PCs who make it through get a victory prize, and then they, like I said before, go on to become first level full-fledged adventurers. And then we finish up with that chapter. Chapter 8, Faraway Land. I'll go through this really quick. This is an overview of the history of the universe, different realms, the Bulgosphere, Cryosphere, Elemental Sphere, the Celestial Hierarchy. These are children of the Cosmic Wanderer who came from the Orton, the Omni-Hair. Description of them. Description of and history of Faraway Land itself, different periods in its time. The Boom War, the Machine Wars, and then some maps of Faraway Land and its more prominent locations. And that pretty much finishes the book up right there. The last thing is the character sheets. There's a black and white one included in the book, and then there's a full color one, and then that's followed by a substantial index with in the PDF. This is all bookmarked for easy navigation. So I hope this gives you an idea of what's in this book. I hope it's pretty straightforward. It lets you see the artwork in there, and it'll let you know what you're getting into. I hope you enjoyed this. If you have questions, of course, for me, you know what, Faraway Land on MeWe, Faraway Land on Facebook, faruniverse.com, and then feel free to send me a message or send me an email. Thanks for watching. If you back the project, thanks so much. I hope you all find this book a good addition to the Faraway Land universe. Thank you.